I call Clayton Mitchell.
Mr Speaker, it's great to be back after our summer recess, and great to see everybody's smiling faces back in the House. And of course our newest member on the other side there, lovely to have a new face to get to know. Mr Speaker, it gives me great pleasure also to look around this House again. I see quite a collegial approach to this piece of legislation. And in fact, I think from memory, the last piece of legislation we were discussing before we went on to recess, we actually had sort of a cross-party accord. So great to see parties coming together when it comes to common sense thinking. So I can say that New Zealand First will be supporting this through to Select Committee, and we look forward to pulling that apart and seeing how we can tidy it and titivate it to make it even better. But Mr Speaker, this is largely an innocuous piece of legislation. We see it as tidying up some areas that really help to communicate better with the communities, to actually help those affected communities get back on their feet very quickly, effectively and in a timely fashion. And so I think every party has clearly said that that is the intent and that they are going to be supporting that through. Mr Speaker, this bill, the Civil Defence Emergency Management Amendment Bill, is designed to affect just the small and medium-sized events that happen around the country. And as the Greens have pointed out, that those events, weather events largely, are happening more and more frequently and costing the country and the communities a lot in lost in profits and revenues, and of course jobs, etc. And so everything that we can do to help those the civil defence and the local tertiary authorities to get themselves back on their feet, I think has to be absolutely commended. The bill basically breaks down, it does four things. It identifies as who does what and mandates roles of responsibility to that effect. It works out how we do it and strengthens recovery planning, establishes recovery management roles and recovery coordination. It goes through a transition management and planning to establish transition notices, which gives the Minister, as we've just heard, 90 days and a further 90 days to make sure that the recovery is on track to get the area affected back on its feet quickly and effectively. And fourthly, it creates legislative authority allowing Crown funding, which comes back to the who pays. Now, I guess out of all those four things, the top three are absolutely fantastic, but there's a question mark around the who pays, because we have seen this government get a debt situation over $100 billion now and rising, and that really is how are we going to manage the who pays effect, because I think Christchurch is a fantastic example where we have seen budgets being blown out, costs accumulative, working into billions of dollars, and largely the insurance companies not being able to cover the bill or not actually being legally obliged to cover some of those bills. So the who pays is a big question for what we are looking for to have sort of identified and worked through. The transition notices, Mr Speaker, I think are a great piece of legislation to go into here. Giving the mandate of the Minister to identify that this area, whether it be the whole country, whether it be an area of a country that needs to have special attention provided, and it works through the groups, the civil defence emergency groups, what are they called here? I've got it written down. The groups which actually provide the services to make sure that it happens. So if we've got a transition period, transition notice given, we can actually make sure that if a road needs to be shut down, if a property needs to be entered into, if there's works that need to be done, then that can just be, we can get on with the job. We can close down that area, we can close it off to the public, and won't inhibit the recovery of one of those medium or minor infringements. As I've said earlier, we are seeing more and more of these incidents around. We've had floods in the Wairarapa, we've had floods in Matatar, Northland's been flooded. They seem to be happening at least annually, sometimes biannually, and it's a huge cost to the communities at large, and particularly those councils that are largely left to fit the bill. And again, we'd like to see a framework put into place as what is the amount of money that's put aside for something as large as a medium-scale issue, flooding, whether it be weather, whether it be high seas, with king tides coming in with high winds. Cyclone Bola was another example of where we needed the civil defence to step in and help out. And it comes back to those 5 Ps. Perfect preparation prevents poor performance. And I know we talked about the risk reduction, the readiness, response and recovery, but what we're really talking about is preparing ourselves for the worst case scenario and ensuring that our communities can get back onto their feet as quickly and less onerously as possible. The area that I have some concern with, and it came out in the regulatory impact statement, was with regards to the order in council. And it says here, for constitutional reasons, order in councils are generally only provided for where there are exceptional circumstances. For this reason, they would be more appropriate to large-scale emergencies that fortunately are extremely rare and which are not the focus of stage 1 of the review, and hence the analysis summarised in the regulatory impact statement. Any options for order in council might fall in the ambit of the second stage of the review. We would certainly would raise some eyebrows for New Zealand First to have that brought into effect, Mr Speaker, and anything where you've got an order in council, I think we need to look very, very closely at as well. Mr Speaker, we do support this through to Select Committee. We think it actually addresses a number of issues that happen when you have a weather event or a civil defence emergency event, and we look forward to seeing that we can break it apart more closely and look at it and hear from submitters in the committee stage. Thank you, Mr Speaker.